So good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're logging from. So welcome to our NARST graduate student committee webinar series. And so this is our premier Career Steps webinar series. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome you all as we continue to see people jumping into the group. So perhaps we can start by indicating in the chat where you're joining us from. So if you can do that, just indicate where you're joining us from as we wait for some of our graduate students to join us. So my name is Collins Mulger. I am the chair of the graduate student committee. Again, I welcome you all to this premier graduate student committee Career Steps webinar series. I'll talk more about the series as we continue. Please indicate in the chat where you're joining us from, so we can know where our guests, our attendants are joining the call from. So I can see we have Eric from Louisville. We have someone from Pentecost University in Accra, Ghana. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
That's fantastic. We have Patrick from Florida State. So as members continue introducing themselves and telling us where they're joining the call from, I will briefly introduce and share about this Career Steps webinar series. And then later on, I will open the floor for our guests to join and share with that what she has prepared. So this graduate student committee webinar series is called Career Steps webinar series. As Isaac Newton stated that that I have seen Father, if I have seen Father, it is because it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. So amongst our members at NARST, we have people who have gone farther than some of us who are just beginning our graduate studies, or who are in the middle or about to complete our graduate studies. And we want to gather insights from them and see how we can grow from them. As the graduate student committee, we understand that navigating the transition from graduate studies to a fulfilling career can feel sometimes overwhelming. So because there are countless possibilities, there's academia, industry, government, nonprofit, and beyond, there's more options. So graduate students often find themselves uncertain about which path to pursue and how to begin. So the graduate student committee recognizes this challenge, and we're proud to introduce this Career Steps webinar series. This is an engaging monthly webinar series designed to illuminate the multiple career trajectories that we have available. We also want to offer practical guidance and foster meaningful connections within our NARST community. So this webinar series will feature PhDs, accomplished PhDs and seasoned NARST members who have already traversed this journey that we're beginning as graduate students. And by sharing their personal stories, complete with the challenges that they faced, pivotal moments and unexpected opportunities that came along the way. So our speakers will bring to life the myriad routes to career success. So more than just mere inspiration, we hope that these sessions will provide concrete strategies and resources and also networks that you can leverage as you craft your own path. You know, after all, one meaningful connection can be that spark that redefines your career. And so our guest speaker for today, we are honored to have Dr. Zubeida, a professor of science education from the University of Delaware. I'll give her the floor to introduce herself shortly. But before that, I just wanted us to share about this Career Steps webinar series. So this will be a monthly event held on every last Friday. So we already have a number of accomplished PhDs who will be joining us every last Friday of the month to support our graduate students at NARST in navigating the challenges during your graduate studies and even after. So this will be the structure of our session. So we'll have 30 minutes where our guest will share about their career journey. They'll talk about insights and key decisions and turning points. And then if they have some practical advice that they want to offer graduate students, they will go ahead and do that. And then after that, we'll have a time for participants to ask questions. So you can put your questions in the chat and I'll be able to read them out to our guest later on. So in the spirit of supporting graduate students, we have some opportunities that I'll be talking about later that are available. And our graduate student committee has also opened a WhatsApp channel that members, especially in the international community and others, can join this WhatsApp channel in order to facilitate communication and sharing of opportunities. So I've put the WhatsApp link in the group. You can join that later. We also have some members who are looking for postdoctoral candidates to join their teams. And I will put the link to that communication in the chat so that you can see if this is the right opportunity for you, because we want to support our graduate students, provide guidance, and also offer opportunities. So I'm just going to post the link to the communication from the University of Georgia, the AI for STEM Education Center, and the National Genius Center. They are offering recruiting postdoctoral researchers. So if you're out there looking for an opportunity, we want to support graduate students, and this is an example of the many opportunities we will be sharing. So the email is there, and I'm going to share this in the links and remind you before the meeting ends so you can grab this opportunity. So without any further ado, I would like to open the floor to Dr. Zubeida to introduce herself more fully and also to share with us for today. So Dr. Zubeida, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Collins. Thank you to the NARST Graduate Student Committee for inviting me to be part of this amazing series. I'm so happy that you established this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everyone to meet everyone else, because NARST is now, we are very big. It's very hard to meet some of the for the junior scholars to meet the senior scholars and vice versa. So this is an opportunity to increase that possibility of interaction and exchange. And I'm hoping for today that this would be a two-way street. So I'm going to limit my remarks to half of the time and get to know you and your interests and what you'd like to talk about in the second half. So first, I introduce myself. The way to say my name is Zubeida Daher. I am Lebanese American. So you can imagine that I traveled to the US a long time ago to work on my PhD. Some of you in the session might be international students in the US or in another state or in another country. And so you could be working on your degree away from home, and you may share some of the challenges I had or not. But I think, again, what's nice about this talk is that it's not packaged in any academic structure. So no PowerPoint today, just casual conversation about my experiences. And they are my experiences. So I hope you respect that aspect of it, that I'm not trying to use it to generalize or make judgments or say that this is the way life should go for a graduate student. None of that. It's very personal and very unique because of what you're about to hear. So if you look at my CV, you see a very straight line of work. Started out with a bachelor's in science degree, science education. It was a mix of biology and chemistry with a teaching diploma. One of the few I've seen back in that era that were titled science ed, but this is what my degree was. And when I graduated at that time, I was still very young. I was 21. And I felt I was too close to the age of the secondary students to go ahead and teach them right away, you know, with that degree. So I bought myself some time, I thought, by going for a master's degree at another institution. So I started at the Lebanese American University, went to the American University of Beirut. And that was a transformative experience to me because I went from, you know, your regular undergraduate, serious one, I should say. I was a very serious student. Liberal arts, beautiful education, you know, read those great civilization books and additional things. Was very interested in psychology at the time. So whatever was not in my major was like I have the equivalent of like a mini minor in psychology almost. Very interested in that and how people learn and all of these great things that we learn in college. So I went to the American University of Beirut and I started the graduate program. Not sure what to expect. I just knew I like to learn, I like to study. And I fell in love with the program to the point that from the very first semester, I decided I'm going to do a PhD. I'm going to spend my entire life at a university. I just loved academic life. I loved this idea of research that you can look and search for materials and form your ideas. The first paper I wrote for one of my courses in science ed had 36 references. And those were the days that, you know, you really read, you read the article, you weren't quoting someone who quoted someone else. And we were taught to summarize everything on index cards. So it takes a lot of time to read and to document. And I was very fortunate to be assigned a graduate assistant. And at the time, they were working on a curriculum project in the Arab world. And so I enjoyed that aspect of it as well. So long story short, I am working on this master's degree. I'm loving it. It's a master's in education, but with a focus on science ed. So my thesis was about health misconceptions of middle school students. We call them intermediate, you know, students. So it was about that. So I had fascination with this misconceptions literature way from the start. And So again, I was already looking for graduate institutions for PhD because in Lebanon at the time, there was no other institution offering the degree. And that made my life a bit difficult because I was very much a homebody. I was close to my family. Even I had to live in the dorms for that master's degree. We live only like very short distance. We're talking less than 10, maybe 10 kilometers, 6 miles from the university. But because there was war at the time, a civil war that was ravaging the country, I was on the other side of the line of the warring factions, and so had to cross that to go to the university. And so it was safer to just stay there for my senior year in the undergraduate, my entire the 2 years of graduate work. So anyway, it's a personal story again that continues. The fascination with research started out early for me, but I knew that I needed to work in the trenches to teach, to get a realistic sense of what teaching is like. So I worked for about 2 years and 3 months, sort of in the middle of that third year, I accepted an admission offer from the University of Iowa. And that was a major fork in the road, right? There were forks before, but this was a main one because it involved leaving everything behind, leaving life the way I knew it, leaving family, leaving everything. It was a huge step. It took a lot of courage. Actually, it took me the 2.5 years to gather the courage to make that decision, because even when I applied, I was sort of thinking it's okay if I don't get admitted, because then I don't have a decision to make. They will make the decision for me and I'll be okay. And I will never forgive myself for not trying, right, to go for that next degree. So, but when I got that letter, there was no question in my mind what I wanted to do. But it was the middle of the year, and it was difficult to like I'm teaching in 2 schools at the time. And so anyway, long story short, checked with the principals, they were fine, everybody was fine, just left. Middle of the year, January, I was here in the coldest weather ever in the Midwest, Iowa. Snow, snow is not new to me. Mountains of Lebanon, have snow, but this was different. This is like day-to-day snow. I loved it again. Why Iowa? Because why I made the choice, because of what was going on there, a huge science education center, 9 faculty members working in science ed. That is amazing. So that was what attracted me to the place. And so that was a major transformative decision. It took me about 4.5 years to finish the degree. There were some challenges, and I'll tell you a bit about those. The first one about, it's leaving family. It wasn't easy. It wasn't like I left and things were peaceful. There were dangers, there were concerns about their safety, all of these things. Adding to that was the difficulty of communication. We did not have FaceTime and Zoom and all of these. So the only way to contact them was by phone, and phone calls were expensive, like $1.50 for a minute. So you measured those minutes and you called once a week if you could afford it. Many other challenges I will not get into. This is like a story for a NARST cup of coffee. But the graduate program, again, I was not disappointed. The same feelings I had in that first year master's degree, multiply it by, quadruple it, multiply it by whatever multiplier, it was huge. I loved the program. I felt that the fact that I left lots behind was compensated for by the education I was getting by working alongside top scholars in the field, worked with Dr. Yeager, Bob Yeager, with Daryl Phillips, who was a Piagetian scholar, Jim Szymanski, George Kosman, my advisor, Vince Lunetta, a good number of professors who were really very different from each other. Each one had a unique way of doing things, a unique area of study, and that maximized the amount of learning that took place. And as a result, I had many interests. It was very difficult to hone in on one, dissertation topic. I like wanted to do 5, 6 things, but of course I had to choose. And that was another fork in the road. And when I decided what I was going to work with, this is how I knew this was it. I could not get it out of my mind or of my heart. It sticks. Whatever I do, it comes back to me. I knew this was going to be it. So at the time, it was a challenge. Like, I wanted to study how teachers use scientific explanations in the classroom. And I was using an epistemic angle to this, a nature of science angle, a unique sort of topic, very different from the regular tracks, and required the way I wanted to study it was also unique because it was neither qualitative nor quantitative. It was sort of in between. And we're talking at a time when there were methodology wars taking place, late 80s, early 90s. Like, you're either qualitative, you're either quantitative, and you better not be qualitative because these were like questionable ways of doing things. So this is where I invested a lot in myself, actually. I was living on the stipend I was getting as a graduate student. It was very little at the time, but I was saving enough to be able to go to ARA, even if I'm not presenting. I would go and to NARST, because not always there was support for these travels. And I learned there a lot about these wars. I knew I wasn't alone. There was a group actually at NARST led by two professors, Ken Tobin and Jim Gallagher, who formed like a qualitative research sort of interest group. It wasn't official, but we would meet and we would talk about our interests and how to navigate them. Because in many institutions at that time, there weren't specialized people in these areas. Mostly was qualitative, was very quantitative, sorry, methodologists. So even finding some for the committee was a challenge. But all of that worked out. It took some convincing of committee members that it was okay to go observe many teachers and yet be studying, doing discourse analysis on what they were doing. Like why do you either do a case study or do the other? But no, I wanted to do both. So because I wanted to look at the landscape of what these explanations looked like. And one of my committee members, he was a physiologist, an amazing one. And he understood what I was trying to do. And he gave me this great analogy that I used, even wrote in my work. Because, when you do your dissertation, your committee wants to know exactly how you're going to analyze your data. And I'm telling them, like, I will find out. I don't know what I'm going to find out. When I do the coding and the analysis, I will find out. And so in order to clarify that, there was this idea of, when Linnaeus was doing his taxonomy, he wasn't looking at a code book. He was creating the code book. So that gave me the convincing power, along other things, to support. But it was truly a credit to my dissertation committee, my advisor, and all of them who trusted that I knew what I was doing and that it was going to be meaningful work. It wasn't going to be a disaster. Because this is what your professors try to do, is prevent you from ending with a disaster, collecting data for a year and a half and then realizing that it's not giving you anything meaningful. So that was important. Now the challenge, no one knew at the time when I was proposing all these ambitious things is that I neither had a car to drive like within 50-mile radius, like I did my IRB and everything, 50-mile radius to get to those schools scattered along, the Iowa landscape. Um, but again, I got my driver's. I knew how to drive before, so it was just a matter of going through formalities, borrowing a car from a friend. I mean, it took a village to help me do the work. And this is another thing, counting on kind people who are always there to support. And as I said before, a lot of that community that I felt enabled me to survive these challenges. I needed materials, equipment to record the sessions, right, for my teachers. I had a like small little recorder, but one of my classmates, the colleagues in the graduate program, had a whole mixer, sound mixer and things. So I would log that with me and put one on the teacher and one in the back, and I had a very clear recording. So imagine if I didn't have access to that, if he didn't offer to help, like everyone was like chipping in whatever they could do. So that was great, but it all went fine. Graduated, survived that. Came time to apply for job. In that time last year, where to apply? Oh, I was very picky. First, I wanted to apply to only like 4 places, and they had to be a certain thing. So I did, and then I saw an advertisement for the University of Delaware. I thought, they're asking for elementary and I'm secondary. I don't know if I will fit in or not, but I'll apply. I'll go. I'll apply. I applied. I didn't know where Delaware was, but I got an interview. They invited me again because the first interview, I was very early in my data analysis and it wasn't clear. By the time they invited me again, I had a whole framework put together. So I got offered the job, and the rest is history. I'm still there. And you may ask, why there? Because it was the right place for me. When I interviewed, everything went great. The conversations I had with colleagues, the culture I felt was exactly what I ended up getting into. So I was, I think, very, very blessed in that I didn't have to move. Now, some people move not because they don't like the place, but because there's a better opportunity. They want to just move for family reasons or whatever. In my case, I was happy where I am, and I still am. And so I went through all the promotions, and I'm where I'm at here. So in terms of the academic interests or research interests, those evolved over time. But if you look at them, they sort of revolve within the same big sort of sphere where it's like uh, the electrons, you're going around and around, but you're going around the same, the nucleus. You're moving here and there, but the work is mostly epistemic in nature. It's mostly, it focuses a lot on teaching and learning. And there is a lot of concern in it about getting science right, so to speak, for teachers, for the public, for students. So this is where it's at. I developed great interest earlier in student cognition, their preconceptions, in science, technology, society, which morphed into socioscientific issues. All of these, they have also an epistemic line to them with cognition, of the Piagetian lineage, with the socioscientific issues. There is the science, technology, society, which has roots in, again, the sociology of science. So a lot of that nature of science, again, I looked at nature of explanations, nature of analogies, and in the classroom, again, it was always at the intersection of epistemology, sociology, or nature of science, and the classroom. That intersection was very important to me in all of my work. And so this sort of more or less is an overview of the trajectory. And as it evolved, I had the great pleasure and honor to work with colleagues who also we helped push the ideas, my ideas and their ideas forward. So contributions to the field included revising, looking at the nature of science from a different perspective that is inclusive of societal and factors, power structures, maybe in a way that enables us to talk about these things meaningfully with our students. But at the center of all this is not like fascination with the idea of research, it's fascination with what can we understand about a situation that enables us to do a better job teaching it, helping students learn it better. How can we help the public understand things? I remember one of the early formative experiences in my graduate, maybe first or second year of grad school. I read this editorial in the journal Science about how people have difficulty understanding the idea of risk. Now look at that. Back way when the idea of risk and that they want zero risk, which is impossible. So my position paper back then was about introducing statistics and ways to think about statistical thinking before they made it into any of the national standards, the 96 or recently, the importance of teaching those in middle school, in the middle school curriculum, because my eye is on the public understanding of science, but I see our K-12 as a pathway to that. Many students don't continue to higher education. We need to equip them with important ideas early on. Awareness of societal and scientific issues, my goodness, the environmental issues. From that time, I took classes in toxicology when I was in college. I did ecological research. That was another turning point, at which time a previous advisor told me, you have to choose, are you doing science or are you doing science education? So I kept that on the side. I would go to the Iowa Prairie 3 years in a row and collect all that data. It was a crazy project, but you don't want to know more. It's very complicated. But I was curious. I wanted to know because the literature was not clear about whether it's better to mulch the grass or cut it or burn it for the prairie to have better outcomes and to maintain the diversity of the species back then. So I undertook this study and I wanted to do longitudinal one because a year's study will not tell you much. So I was aware of that. And I learned about a lot about the nature of science that you will see in the research and it looks like stiff and complicated. I learned a lot about it from my own experience doing scientific research, really walking into that ecology outside into nature and asking, as the professor at that time, researcher would ask, what does this plant do? When does it, what does it, why is it closed now? It was open in the morning. How can we find out? Is this plant pollinator, does it get pollinated by wind or by insects? How do you find out? So learning how to ask questions, that experience early, we're talking first summer in my graduate program of doing like 10 credits of ecological research, shaped my being for the rest of my life because I knew I could ask a question and there was always a way to answer it. I just had to think about how. And that shifted my mindset from not liking like botany at all, to realizing that it was not the way I was taught it about just memorizing these names of plants, but it was about understanding how plants work and how scientists go about their studies. So a lot of my influences, the things I write, are shaped a lot by my research in the sciences and in education and by learning from the teachers and the children that I worked with as well, and from amazing colleagues and professors, everyone really, the NARST community, going to those meetings, listening carefully, engaging in the conversations, and keeping an open mind, right? You don't want to take sides, you need to understand and appreciate what the other is saying. And I think if we cannot do that in our communities, we're not going to be able to do it with our students and pre-service or in-service teachers. So with that, I'm going to stop and open it up for, oh, I should close with some advice, I guess. Okay, so I have really a list, a short one, but here are the things, again, based on experience and based on what I see in general happening around me. I see a lot, sometimes students take shortcuts. I'm not talking about graduate students, but in general, it's like once you put student hat, it can happen to you. So ward yourself against it. Meaning multitasking, you think you can do everything, you can read and watch the TV and talk to someone all at the same time. It doesn't work. Another shortcut these days is ChatGPT. Avoid it. It has its uses, but I'm telling you, if you start relying on it, every time you see a paper and it tells you, do you want a summary? And say, yeah, great, I'll finish this and have the time. You are really undermining your education. I want to beseech you to read deeply and read critically. Very important. To write often and to edit even more often, because for many people, it takes a lot to clear these thoughts. And even if they are clear from the very beginning, they can get better with more thought and with more engagement. Invest in yourself and don't narrow your interests down too early. I was always told to narrow my interests, narrow it, and I think it was good advice. And this is important after a while, but not from the very beginning of your career or your graduate student career, at least. You need to really understand the landscape, read widely before you narrow down too much. Seek expertise wherever you can find it. It may be on campus, in a different department or college. Seek mentors to guide your journey. You don't have to have only one. Again, I said it takes a village. We talked about staying open-minded. I think it's critical for advancement. And very importantly, be passionate about your work. And I know I'm not talking about work as a thing. I'm talking about it as a vocation, as a service, as Khalil Gibran talks about work as an expression of love. It's love made visible. That's the kind of thing you want to do, is project this care onto the work that you do and onto the participants who are in your work and to those you mix with, because I think it's very important to share that aspect of yourself that can be useful for others. So I will stop here, and I'm very eager to hear from you and your questions, your thoughts and reflections.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. I think my internet was kind of shaky, but I hope you can all hear me. Thank you very much, Dr. Zubaydah, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for the advice that you've given us and sharing your story with us today. So the floor is open to anyone who has a question. You can ask the questions verbally. You can also put the question in the chat and I'll ask it for you. So we have a couple of minutes before we call it a day. Please, you can unmute yourself, ask your question, and or type it in the chat. So as teachers, we're going to give you some time, wait time for you to take it in.
you may all have thoughts to add or experiences also you want to share. So please feel free to share that as well.
Thank you so much for your presentation today. Listening to this is really inspiring because it's not necessarily it's understanding that not everybody's journey is so cut and dry, and some people have those experiences and it's great. And I think your experience just adds to the mix of everyone's that I've heard of. So I really appreciate your willingness to just open up and talk about that. And I was wondering, since this is like the career series, if you could talk a little bit about the current landscape of having an academic position, and getting an academic position, just in terms of what you all do at the University of Delaware, obviously knowing that different universities operate differently, but I'm not really sure what I want to do. I do have academia on my sites a little bit, but not sure exactly. So if you could just talk a little bit about that process, I think that'd be really helpful for me. So, and again, thank you for sharing your experience as well.
Thank you, Lauren. Yes, the landscape is getting a bit is more open than it used to be in the past. In the past, mostly when you went for the PhD, you ended up at the university. Right now, there are many other possibilities, working at science centers, museums of science, at think tanks, so the political entities, advising senators and things on, on site, educating them about science issues. So there are possibilities to work in the public sphere in multiple places, to work in school districts also as a science specialist. I think it would be great to really merge that academic interest with the actual, like really collecting data, helping teachers understand what they are doing, supporting them in the classroom from both a research and an academic perspective, content knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge. So there are all of these possibilities. When it comes to working at a university, I'm seeing also a diversity of possibilities there. A lot of research centers at universities. I'm seeing profiles of like research faculty, kind of. You are part of a center, you're doing research most of the time, and you connect across faculty from different fields. So that is always an option. There is clinical faculty. It's sort of the opposite of focusing mostly on teaching. Some places call it continuing track as opposed to tenure track. We call it at the University of Delaware continuing track. I like that because it's not like you're here only teaching. You're here and you're staying. If you're tenure, maybe you will, maybe you'll make it, maybe you're not. But if you're continuing, you get evaluated. Same thing every several number of years. But it's another opportunity for people who love to be at a university, like doing the teaching component, like the research, but they don't want the pressure necessarily of the tenure track in terms of that pressure that comes with number of publications and grants and things like that. And those people, from my experience at my school, are amazing. They have the most interesting scholarly profiles, and they publish sometimes just as much as their tenure track colleagues. They just don't have that pressure. So there are many options, and just because the job doesn't require it, so to speak, you can still do it. And I think my advice to anyone who is unsure, wants to try to go outside academia with the idea of possibly coming back to it, is to keep their research profile active so that they are ready to jump back in any time. So maintain these connections and networks, colleagues with whom you are working now, so that you can stay in the know. Always our jobs will take us, will focus on what is required, and our skill set will start to weaken. That's another reason for why it becomes difficult to come back. But if you stay in it, even mildly so, it helps to keep that skill set fresh and ready. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and it answered a question I did not even know I was asking about how to, navigate that if I don't do academia right away. How do I stay in it? So I appreciate you reading my mind.
Yeah, please stay in it. It's very important. Even if you don't know whether, even if you think you're gonna leave it forever, you had some bitter experiences, you don't want to touch it again. Don't close that door. It's a beautiful place to be. At least I see it that way, right? We're talking about my experiences. So I'm not sharing any values here, but I value a lot. I think it's a great privilege to be able to work with pre-service teachers, to bring them the best of what we know, to hopefully they'll go out and do the same with their students, give them the best of the best, to work with teachers, to also work with the research community, to know what's going on. I mean, as it is, we're doing the research, we're going to the conferences, and it's very hard to keep up with that research. It is amazing. You have so many strands at NARST. Like, I want to go to all of them. I want to go to all these rigs, but they meet at the same time. So this is why I say, please stay curious, stay curious. If you decide, oh, you're just doing strand X and stick to it, you've closed it, you've closed yourself in too much because it's all connected. Like, okay, I go mostly to strand 13, but history and nature of science is in teaching the pre-service teachers, the kindergarten and elementary. It's in policy, it's in everything. You can't really like seclude yourself. So talk to others and stay open for ideas, for strands, for pockets. And if your field, wherever you happen to be, has camps like different ideologies, also understand the other side. Don't just decide it's this and that's the true way of going. We know there are multiple perspectives. And if you can get yourself to appreciate what these perspectives are saying, then that's really all you need to understand, because then it will help you understand your students who come sometimes from a different planet, and you need to connect. So if you can't connect with colleagues, how do you connect with students? I think it's one and the same, being open and enabling people to say what's on their mind without the fear of retribution or alienation.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Thanks.
Do appreciate that question, Lauren. I'm sure you're asking not just for yourself, but for others as well. And Alexis has a question here. First of all, she says, thank you for sharing, Dr. Zubaydah. And not everyone is often sharing their experience, so we're all grateful. And then she asks a question here. Do you think the teacher shortage or interest in pursuing education at the undergraduate level has limited job prospects at all for us at the higher ed level? What was that question clear? Or can I
think
ask
so,
again?
yeah. I'm not sure I have a good answer to that. I think it's got to be related, but it's not the entire reason. I think most higher ed institutions, even in areas where is a thriving number of students in it, they are all going through some budgetary issues, funding issues. So I think it's part of a whole ecosystem that is taking place. So I don't have a clear answer to that, but it's a catch-22, isn't it? Like, we do need a lot of teachers. We need to find ways to recruit them, and we need to have the right, adequate higher education, like highly qualified teacher educators to teach them. So it's a catch-22, but I'm hoping that it ebbs and flows. This is another maybe hopeful message for all of you who are on the job market. It ebbs and flows. It goes in stages. So never um, never despair. Things will open up if it's tight now. Find a temporary home where you can be happy. That's important too. Not, and be ready to move on when the right opportunities come by.
Eric also says, thank you for the fantastic talk, and thank you, NAS, for this event to help graduate students. So that's a message from Eric. We still have a couple of minutes, 9 minutes to hear your questions. So we still have time for questions. So you can either unmute yourself and ask your question to Dr. Zubaida, or you can write it in the text and I will read it out.
And maybe while people are thinking, I can just
Yes.
throw some like thoughts that have come to mind.
Perfect.
We talked about challenges in graduate school, and many of them, they come back to you later in life. Like you will always find people who may not understand where you're coming from, like maybe some of the people you encountered earlier in your grad school. And so it's important to learn how to simplify what you are saying, to speak in ordinary language, to be able to speak to the public, to others outside of academia about your work. To not connect to yourself too much to the jargon of the discipline, and to stay grounded in the real mission we are related to. Sometimes we use these complex words to relay complex ideas, but in the end they are about life, about real concepts. And so I think the writing, your thinking should always gravitate towards simplifying communication without trivializing the ideas. That's very important. The ideas should stay complex, but the communication about them should be simplified. Just like in science, right? We simplify the ideas, but we don't want to take the complexity and reduce the atom and its beautiful components and subcomponents to just being a, you know, an invisible thing, little thing. So learning how to communicate, I think, to non-experts can be helpful, even with communicating to experts who are not immediately in your immediate specialization or area of interest. And the same challenges, like I mentioned, wars, I mentioned being away from family, difficulty sometimes with like finding means of communication. These sometimes continue in different ways. Losing loved ones when you happen to be in a different location. That happened to me. I lost my dad in my second year of my graduate. It was difficult. I couldn't go back, and it was hard because he was my #1 cheerleader for the degree, and he didn't get me to see me finish it. So there are some disappointments, some challenges, but you learn that it's part of life. You take it and you move on. Try to just get over those personal and academic hiccups. They are bound to happen. There's nothing straightforward. And yes, I don't think I really fully communicated the complexity of the forks in the road. But again, I'm happy to chat with any of you at NARST. Please seek me out and come and let's talk about anything, including you. Right? Really, I'm very curious about what you are researching. What is the young generation now thinking about, and where are you taking the field? Where are you taking NARST? Where are you taking the teaching and learning of science? I'm very curious about that. I'm not interested in just sharing the great ideas I developed, they are just ideas. So you're the future contributors, and what you do is very important. And it's the fresh air that you bring to the field that enables it to grow and evolve to the better.
Thank you for being open, Dr. Zubaydah, that our graduate students can reach out to you at NARST and just inquire about the questions or research trajectory that they are having. So we really appreciate your willingness to continue supporting graduate students. Thank you for giving your time today. Yeah, it's been an honor having you. So we still have like 4 minutes. So if anyone still has a question or there's something lingering that you want to be clarified, so you're welcome to ask or write that in the chat. And I'm grateful for everyone who's made time to participate today. It's been wonderful. So I see Blessing. If you have a question, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you, Dr. Zubaydah, for the talk. And I also lost my dad this year. This is my first year. So I'm my second year last year, just like you did. And so talking about that just kind of made me feel like I'm going to go through everything as well and come out stronger on the other side. I have a question. For a job, for academic job at higher level, like college or faculty position, how important is it to have like a teaching experience, teaching science? If all you do is research for now, by the time you get to like looking for a faculty position, would that be a problem if you don't have a teaching experience? Yeah, that's my
Yes, thank you, Blessing. I love your name. I use this word a lot. I use your name a lot, and I feel always blessed. So, if your parents gave you that name, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope you feel the value of that in your everyday life. Coming back first, I'm very sorry for your loss. I feel for you. It's very difficult, and I don't think I would have survived without the community of grad students and professors and friends who really, I didn't know at the time why they were taking me out to lunch, but it didn't occur to me. I thought they just want to go to lunch, but now in retrospect, I understand why. Um, anyway, so going back to your question, I'm not sure if you're asking about teaching pre-college or college, but I'll answer both ways. I think it's important to have it at both levels. So if you've had, because we are always researching, teaching, and learning environments. So if you're teaching the pre-college, you need to have been in the trenches. It helps a lot. You can always get that experience even later. If you are applying to a higher education job, it's very critical to have that higher ed experience as well. My first assignment was a TA of a course, and so it got done early in my career, and then I was doing more research experiences. You are still early in the program. I would strongly recommend to you that you ask your program mentors to find an opportunity for you to serve as a TA on one of the existing courses, either as part of a TA line, or if that cannot be done, to do it as on your own, like even on a volunteer basis, but it's better if it's like paid as overtime. My institution allows our graduate assistants, even if they are on a like 20-hour contract, to teach an additional course. It'd be tough, right? Because teaching a course is a full-time job, but do what you can, but please get that experience. I can tell you that if I'm looking at applications coming for a future position, we should be opening one up like in the next 2 years, so be on the outlook. But we're like, everything is frozen now, but we have a vacancy and we need to fill it. But please get that, because the people who have that experience are going to be ahead of you in the pecking order. Get that experience, very important. And it's
Thank
better to be instructor of record because you need to have these student evaluations. You really need to have it.
Yeah.
I don't know where you are now, if you are in the US or somewhere.
I'm at the US. I'm at Illinois State University.
Yes, so particularly if you are an international student looking to find a job in the US, you need to have the experience in the US
Yeah.
because that's the
Okay.
system you'll be teaching in.
Yeah.
But for everybody, wherever you happen to be, it's important to do teaching, even if you think you're going to do research. It's going to be beneficial to you because what are you researching? I mean, we're always researching, teaching, learning curriculum, and you need to stay up to date and not rely on your experience from 10 years ago, right? It's good to refresh that in whichever way you find it possible to do.
We've reached
Thank you
our
so
time for
much.
today.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we've reached our time. Thank you, Blessing. I'm sure you've asked that question, not just for you, but for others. And
Yeah.
this brings us to the end of our time today because we want to respect everybody's time. The session was an hour. Please join our next meeting next month. So
Thank you.
remember,
Attending. Sorry for interrupting. I want to
Yes,
make
yes, yes.
sure that I thank you for taking time also to be with me this afternoon.
yeah.